A millionaire fires the humble nanny who had brought joy back to his twin daughters after years of suffering. Without her, the girls emotionally collapse and sink into a silence that no doctor can explain. Desperate, the father seeks her out again, unaware of the strength of the bond she left behind. And the moment the nanny returns, the twins rise from their wheelchairs to embrace her, revealing a miracle no one dared to believe in. Emily Carter held the strap of her worn-out handbag tightly as she watched the wrought-iron gates slowly swing open before her. The mansion that rose at the end of the cobblestone driveway looked like something out of an architecture magazine, with its large windows, impeccably manicured gardens, and a marble fountain in the center of the front courtyard. She swallowed hard, feeling the weight of the difference between that world and her two-room flat in East London. The job advertisement had been vague. Nanny wanted with experience in special care, full-time availability, generous salary. Emily had responded more out of desperation than expectation. At 26, she had accumulated experience in community daycares, nursing homes, and even a brief stint at a children's rehabilitation center. Nothing very formal, nothing that would fill out a fancy resume, but she had life experience in spades. The main door opened before she even touched the bell. A woman of about 50, dressed in an impeccable grey suit with her hair in a tight bun, examined her from head to toe with a critical eye. Mrs. Gable, the housekeeper. Emily recognized the type immediately. Punctual. That's good, the woman said without smiling, gesturing for Emily to enter. Mr. Davies is in a meeting, but he left instructions for me to conduct the initial screening. Good heavens, the number of candidates we've dismissed this week. The interior of the mansion was even more impressive. Marble, crystal chandeliers, works of art on the walls. Emily felt her rubber soles squeak on the gleaming floor and had the urge to take off her shoes. "You have experience with special needs children?" Mrs. Gable questioned as they walked down a long corridor. She wasn't asking. She was testing. "Yes. I worked for 2 years at a rehabilitation center. Children with various needs, cerebral palsy, wheelchair users, various syndromes. And you are aware that this is not an ordinary job. The girls are extremely difficult. We've had 15 nannies in less than a year. 15. They all quit." Emily felt a tightness in her chest, but kept her voice steady. "Why did they quit?" Mrs. Gable stopped before a closed door on the second floor and turned with a harsh expression. "Because the girls don't want to be cared for. They scream, they cry, they refuse to eat, they break things. Sophie even bit one of the nannies. Lily simply ignores anyone who tries to get close. They are manipulative, Miss Carter. They use their condition to get what they want." "Their condition," Emily repeated softly, feeling anger rise in her chest. "You're talking about 2 7-year-old children who have been through immense trauma." Mrs. Gable's face hardened even more. "Trauma is no excuse for bad behavior. What these girls need is discipline and a strict routine. Dr. Reed agrees with me. But Mr. Davies insists on trying younger, more patient nannies, as he says, as if patience solves anything." Emily took a deep breath. "May I meet them?" "You may, but don't be surprised if they throw something at you. The last nanny got a glass of water in her face." The housekeeper opened the door and Emily entered a room that looked more like a luxury infirmary. Medical equipment lined one wall, 2 hospital beds, shelves full of toys that looked like they had never been touched. The windows had heavy curtains that blocked almost all natural light. The air smelled of medicine and disinfectant, and there, each in her own wheelchair, were Sophie and Lily. They were identical. Wavy brown hair falling over their shoulders, fair skin, almond-shaped eyes that must have once shone with childish joy. Now they were dull, distant. Sophie held a video game controller with limp fingers, not really playing. Lily stared blankly at the window, as if she hadn't even noticed someone had entered. "Girls, this is Miss Emily. She'll be with you today to see if she's suitable," Mrs. Gable said in a robotic voice. "Behave yourselves. I'll be back shortly." The door closed behind her, and the silence that settled was heavy, suffocating. Emily stood still for a few moments, just observing. Sophie shot her a quick, appraising glance before turning her attention back to the video game screen. Lily remained motionless like a statue. "Hi," Emily said softly, approaching slowly and sitting on the floor at their level. "My name is Emily, but you can just call me Em if you like." No response. "I came to meet you. Mrs. Gable told me you're very smart, that you've already managed to send a bunch of boring nannies away." Sophie looked up, surprised. Lily moved her head slightly. 15 nannies, that's impressive. I guess you must be tired of new people showing up here pretending to care, right?" The silence persisted, but now there was a tension. Emily could feel it. "Look, I'll be honest with you, I'm not rich, I don't have a fancy college degree. I took the bus to get here, it took over an hour, and these shoes are killing me because I bought them second-hand and they're not broken in yet." She took off her shoes and sighed in relief. "There, much better." A corner of Sophie's mouth twitched almost imperceptibly. "And I'm not going to pretend I understand everything you've been through, because that would be a lie. But I know your children. And every child deserves to be treated like a child, not a patient, not a problem." Emily looked around the room. "Do you like this room? It's nice but a bit dark, don't you think? So many windows and these curtains are closed. There must be a nice view outside." She stood up and walked to the window, pulling the curtains open. Sunlight flooded the room, revealing a huge garden below, with leafy trees and a swing hanging from one of the branches. "Wow, look at that garden. It even has a swing. Have you ever been out there?" "We can't," came the first word. It was Sophie who spoke, her voice hoarse from disuse. "We're not allowed to leave the room." Emily turned, surprised. "Why not?" "Because we're like this." Sophie pointed to her own legs with an expression far too hard for a 7-year-old. "We don't work right. It's easier to stay here." Emily's heart ached, but she kept her tone light. "Who says it's easier? Mrs. Gable? And the doctor? And Daddy?" Sophie looked down. "We're complicated. It's better for us to stay here where we have everything we need." Emily sat back down on the floor, this time closer. "And do you agree with that?" For the first time, Lily moved properly, turning her wheelchair towards Emily. Their eyes met, and Emily saw a pain so deep it almost took her breath away. It wasn't just physical pain, it was abandonment. It was the feeling of no longer belonging to the world. "We don't have a choice," Lily murmured, so quietly Emily almost didn't hear. "There's always a choice," Emily replied gently. "Sometimes the choices are small, like choosing to leave this window open and see the garden, or choosing to keep it closed and stay in the dark, choosing to talk to me or ignore me until I go away like the others, choosing to believe that things can be different, or accepting that they're this way forever." "But we are this way forever," Sophie said, and there were tears in her eyes now. "We're not going to walk again. Mommy went away forever. Daddy doesn't look at us anymore. We're broken, and no one can fix us." Emily felt her own tears burn, but she forced her voice to remain steady. "You're not broken, you're hurt, and there's a difference. Broken things don't feel. But you feel everything, don't you? You feel longing, you feel fear, you feel sadness. That means you're very much alive. You just need someone who understands that." Sophie wiped her tears with the back of her hand. "You'll leave too, everyone leaves." "I won't leave, unless you throw water in my face. Then I'll have to go change my clothes, but I'll come back." It was Lily who managed the first smile. Small, almost invisible, but it was there. "What if we do throw water on you?" Sophie asked with a mischievous glint in her eyes. Emily pretended to think seriously. "Well, it depends on whether the water is cold or not. If it's cold, I'll scream really loud and make a scene. If it's warm, I'll pretend nothing happened. Deal?" Sophie looked at Lily. Lily looked at Sophie. Something passed between them, a silent communication that only twins share. "Deal," they said together. And just like that, without fanfare, without a big cinematic moment, the first small miracle happened. The girls smiled for real, and Emily knew with absolute certainty that this was exactly where she needed to be. The door opened abruptly, and Mrs. Gable entered with a tray. "The girls' snack. They eat very little, so don't push it." Emily stood up. "Can I help serve?" "It's not necessary. I know exactly how to do it." But Emily was already beside the tray observing. Unsalted mashed potatoes, unseasoned boiled vegetables, processed juice, hospital food. "Do you like this?" she asked the girls. "We have to eat what's healthy," Sophie replied mechanically, as if repeating something she had heard 1,000 times. Emily bit her lip. "Tomorrow, if I come back, can I bring something different? Something you really like?" Mrs. Gable interrupted sharply. "The girls are on a diet controlled by Dr. Reed. You cannot deviate from the protocol." But Emily saw the twins' eyes light up with something she hadn't seen in a long time. Hope. "I understand," she said calmly. "But maybe a little treat now and then wouldn't hurt. A different fruit, a homemade cake." "That is not for you to decide." Mrs. Gable took the tray back. "Mr. Davies will speak with you now. He's finished with his meeting." Emily waved to the girls. "It was very nice meeting you. I hope I'll be back tomorrow." As she followed Mrs. Gable down the corridor, Emily heard a nearly inaudible murmur from the twins' room behind her. "We hope so too." And her heart filled with a determination she didn't know she possessed. Those girls needed her, and she would do anything to stay. Arthur Davies was standing by his office window, looking out at the garden with a glass of whiskey in his hand, when Mrs. Gable knocked. He didn't turn, just nodded to permit her entry. "The candidate is here, sir. Miss Emily Carter." He finally turned. Arthur was a 40-year-old man who looked older. The grey hairs at his temples had multiplied in the last year, and there was a stiffness in his posture that hadn't existed before the accident. He had built an empire from scratch, turning derelict land into multi-million-pound developments, but all that success seemed empty now. "How was the meeting with the girls?" he asked, his voice carrying the distance that had become his trademark. Mrs. Gable frowned. "It lasted longer than usual. The girls didn't attack her, which is something. But the young lady has ideas of her own, questioned the diet, suggested changes. I think she could be problematic, sir." Arthur sighed. Every nanny had been problematic in one way or another. Too strict, too permissive, too young, too old. None had lasted more than 2 weeks. "Send her in." Emily entered the office with her heart pounding. The man before her was imposing, even with the visible weight of suffering on his shoulders. He wore an impeccable suit, but there was something disheveled about him, as if he had put on the armor without really caring about it. "Miss Carter," he said, indicating a chair, "please have a seat." Emily sat on the edge of the chair, her hands clasped in her lap. Arthur remained standing, keeping his distance. "Mrs. Gable informed me that you spent a considerable amount of time with my daughters. They don't usually tolerate strangers for that long." "They're wonderful children, Mr. Davies. They just need someone to treat them like children." Arthur raised an eyebrow. "They have special needs. They require constant medical care, physiotherapy, psychological support." "Yes, but they also need affection, joy, to feel like they still belong to the world." Emily felt her courage grow. "I saw their room. It's a luxury infirmary, not a children's bedroom." Arthur's face hardened. "That room was designed by the best rehabilitation professionals in the country. It has everything they need, except open windows, except colors, except life." The silence that followed was tense. Arthur clenched his jaw, visibly fighting against anger. "Mrs. Gable was right. You are problematic." Emily stood up, ready to be dismissed. But then she thought of Sophie and Lily, of those dull eyes, of that fragile hope she had seen being born, and she couldn't stay silent. "Do you know what's problematic, Mr. Davies? 2 7-year-old girls who consider themselves broken, who think nobody wants them, that their own father can't look at them." Arthur turned sharply, his eyes blazing. "How dare you? You know nothing about me or my family." "You're right, I don't." Emily kept her voice steady, despite the tremor in her hands. "But I know how to recognize children who are suffering, and your daughters are suffering not just because of the legs that don't move, but because of the loneliness they feel every day." "Get out of here," Arthur said through gritted teeth. But Emily continued. "Why don't you go into that room? Why don't you look them in the eye? They need you, more than any nanny, any doctor. They need their father." "I said get out!" His voice echoed through the office. Emily felt tears burn her eyes, but she stood her ground. You're afraid. I understand. You're afraid to see them like this, to remember what happened, to face the pain. But while you hide behind your work and your whiskey, they're upstairs thinking they're not loved. Arthur advanced, his face contorted with anger and pain. You have no right to talk about what I feel. You weren't there. You didn't see the overturned car. You didn't hear the screams. You didn't hold your wife's hand while she... He stopped abruptly, his breathing heavy. The words he almost said hung in the air, forbidden, too painful to be spoken. Emily's heart broke. She saw then that she wasn't facing a cruel or indifferent man, but someone shattered by guilt. I'm sorry, she said softly. I'm sorry for what you went through, for what you lost. But your daughters lost too, and they're still here. They still need you. Arthur stepped back, resting his hands on the desk, his head bowed. I can't, he admitted in a whisper. Every time I look at them, I see her. I see the accident. I see my failure. You didn't fail. It was an accident. I was driving. Arthur raised his head, his eyes red. It was my responsibility to protect my family, and I failed. How can I look at them knowing that? Emily approached slowly. Because they need to know that you still love them, that you don't blame them, that they aren't a painful reminder of what you lost, but the reason you must go on. Arthur was silent for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was hoarse. Do you think you can help them? I can try. If you'll let me. If you'll trust me. He studied her, truly saw her for the first time. A young woman in simple clothes, old shoes, but with eyes full of determination and genuine compassion. Why do you care so much? You don't even know them. Emily smiled sadly. I grew up in a poor neighborhood. I saw a lot of children being neglected, abandoned, forgotten. I swore that if I could ever make a difference in a child's life, I would, and now I have the chance to make a difference in the lives of two. Arthur nodded slowly. All right, you're hired, but there are conditions. He moved back behind his desk, resuming his businesslike posture. You will have autonomy to care for the girls as you see fit, but you must follow the medical instructions of Dr. Reed. She is a specialist in pediatric rehabilitation and knows what she's doing. And if I disagree with her? Then you discuss it professionally. But the doctor has the final say. Emily wanted to argue, but she knew she had to accept the concession. I understand. You will live here. There's a room connected to the girls. Your salary will be £5,000 a month, with all benefits included. Emily almost choked. 5,000. It was more than she had ever earned, in any previous job. Any problem? No, sir. It's very generous. It's not generosity. It's the price for someone who will truly care about my daughters. Arthur turned back to the window. You can start tomorrow. Mrs. Gable will arrange everything you need. Emily walked to the door but stopped before leaving. Mr. Davies, there's one thing I can't accept. What? That you continue to hide from them. I'm not asking you to go in there tomorrow and make an emotional speech, but eventually you'll have to face this fear for them and for yourself. Arthur didn't answer, but Emily saw his shoulders slump slightly, as if he were carrying a weight he finally acknowledged was too great. She left the office and found Mrs. Gable waiting in the hall, her arms crossed. So you were hired. I hope you last longer than the others. I will last, Emily said with conviction, and I'll do much more than last. I'm going to help those girls live again. Fine words. Let's see if you can turn them into actions. The housekeeper turned away. Come, I'll show you to your room. As she climbed the stairs, Emily passed the door to the twins' room. It was ajar and she peeked in quickly. Sophie and Lily were huddled together on the same bed, whispering to each other. When they noticed her presence, they smiled shyly. Are you really coming back? Sophie asked. I am. First thing tomorrow morning, and we're going to make this room a lot more fun. Lily waved slightly, a small but significant gesture. Emily continued following Mrs. Gable, but her heart was lighter. She had a job, she had a purpose, and she had two little girls who would finally have someone to fight for them. The battle was just beginning, and Emily was ready to face it. The first ray of sun had barely touched the horizon when Emily was already awake. She had slept little, the excitement and nervousness allowing for only a few hours of restless sleep. She looked around the room that was now hers, small but comfortable, with a soft bed, a spacious wardrobe, and a door that connected directly to the twins' room. She dressed quickly in simple, comfortable clothes. She had brought few things from home, but enough to start. And in her bag she carried something special she had prepared the night before leaving her old flat. She knocked gently on the connecting door before entering. The girls' room was still shrouded in semi-darkness, the heavy curtains blocking the morning light. Sophie and Lily were asleep, each in her hospital bed, small and fragile under the white sheets. Emily walked silently to the windows and threw the curtains open at once. Golden light flooded the room, transforming it completely. From outside came the sounds of the waking garden, birds singing, leaves rustling in the wind. Sophie groaned and stirred, covering her eyes. Lily woke more slowly, blinking in confusion. "Good morning, sleepyheads," Emily said cheerfully. "I thought we could start the day with a little sunshine. What do you think?" "It's too early," Sophie complained, but there was curiosity in her voice. "The sun doesn't think so." Emily approached the beds. "I had an idea. How about we have breakfast downstairs in the kitchen? We can make pancakes together." "We can't leave the room," Lily said quietly. "It's dangerous." "Dangerous how? Your lift works perfectly. I saw it yesterday when Mrs. Gable showed me around. But the doctor said it's better for us to stay here," Sophie insisted. "Where everything is adapted." Emily sat between the two beds. "Girls, can I tell you a secret? When I was little, I had a teacher who said I would never amount to anything because I came from a poor family. She thought I should just accept my place and not dream big." "And did you?" asked Lily, interested. "Of course not. I told her that poverty doesn't define who I am. And you know what I learned? That people like to put limits on others because it's easier than helping them break those limits." Sophie frowned. "We can't walk." "Yet. You can't walk yet," Emily smiled. "But you can do many other things. You can feel the sun on your face. You can help make pancakes. You can go down to the kitchen and see the world beyond this room." The twins looked at each other, that silent communication happening again. Finally, Sophie nodded. "Okay, but if Mrs. Gable gets mad, it's your fault." "I'll take all the blame," Emily laughed. She helped the girls with their morning routine, noticing how mechanical and joyless everything was. Timed toothbrushing, functional clothes changing, medication checks. But Emily added small changes. She hummed. As she worked, made silly jokes, asked about their likes and dislikes. When they finally descended in the small lift installed on the side of the staircase, Mrs. Gable was in the kitchen preparing the traditional breakfast. "What is going on here?" the housekeeper demanded, her eyes wide at the sight of the girls outside their room. "We're making pancakes," Emily announced brightly. "The girls are going to help me. The girls have oatmeal porridge. It's what Dr. Reed prescribed. They can have porridge tomorrow. Today is pancake day." Mrs. Gable approached, her voice low but threatening. "Miss Carter, you started yesterday. Do not think you can simply ignore years of established protocol." Emily stood firm. "Mr. Davies gave me autonomy, and the girls deserve a nice breakfast." The housekeeper was about to argue when Sophie spoke. "We want pancakes. Please." Sophie's timid pleas disarmed any objection. Mrs. Gable sighed dramatically. "Fine. But when Dr. Reed finds out about this, I take no responsibility." She left the kitchen with heavy steps. Emily let out the breath she had been holding and turned to the girls. "There, now let's get cooking." She took a colourful apron from her bag that she had bought years ago in a local shop. It was printed with butterflies and flowers, a complete contrast to the sterility the girls were used to. "This is our magic apron. Whenever we put it on, we become the best cooks in the world." "That's silly," Sophie said, but her eyes were shining. "Is it? Let's test it then." Emily put on the apron and began to gather the ingredients, narrating each step as if it were an epic adventure. "Now we'll add the magic flour from the highest mountains. Careful, Sophie. This egg is from the bravest rooster on the farm." The girls started to laugh, really laugh, and the sound filled the kitchen like music. Lily measured the milk, Sophie broke the eggs with help. They made a mess, got their clothes dirty, spilled flour on the table, and it was perfect. When the first golden pancakes were ready, Emily served them with honey and fresh fruit. The twins ate with an appetite they hadn't shown in months, chatting excitedly about flavors and textures. It was then that Arthur Davies appeared at the kitchen door. He was dressed for work, dark suit, tie adjusted. He had stopped on his way to the garage, drawn by the sound of laughter he hadn't heard since before the accident. And there, covered in flour with wide smiles on their faces, were his daughters. The world seemed to stop. Sophie and Lily saw him, and their smiles faltered, replaced by expressions of uncertainty and fear. Arthur stood frozen, all the words he could say stuck in his throat. "Good morning, Mr. Davies," Emily said softly, breaking the silence. "We made pancakes. Would you like to try one?" Arthur looked at her, then at the girls, then at the mess in the kitchen. Something passed over his face. Pain, longing, regret, all mixed together. "I have to get to work," he mumbled. "Of course," Emily replied, keeping her tone light despite the disappointment she felt. "The girls understand, don't you girls?" Sophie and Lily looked down, their shoulders slumping. The magical moment dissolved like a soap bubble. Arthur took a step back, then another, but before leaving completely, he looked back one last time. "You look beautiful today." The words came out hoarse, almost inaudible. "Very beautiful." And then he was gone, leaving a heavy silence in his wake. "Daddy thinks we're ugly," Lily said, her voice tiny. "No, no, no." Emily quickly knelt beside them. "He said you look beautiful. Did you hear? He thinks you're beautiful." "But he left," Sophie said, tears rolling down her cheeks. "He always leaves." Emily pulled them both into a hug. "Do you know why he does that? It's not because he doesn't love you, it's because he loves you too much. And sometimes, when we love someone a lot and go through something very painful, it's hard to show that love." "I don't understand," Lily whispered against her shoulder. "I know it's confusing, but I can. Promise you one thing. Your father loves you more than anything in this world. He's just lost right now, and our job is to help him find his way back. Deal?" The girls nodded, still sad but a little comforted. Emily wiped their tears and forced a smile. "Now, how about we finish these delicious pancakes? It would be a waste to let them get cold." They ate in silence for a few minutes, the mood heavier. But then Sophie asked, "Emily, do you think Daddy will ever be like he was before?" Emily thought carefully before answering. "I don't know if he'll ever be exactly like he was before, because we all change when we go through difficult things, but I believe he can learn to be happy again, and so can you." "So can we what?" asked Lily. "You can learn to be happy again, not in the same way you were before, but in a new way, because you are strong, brave, and special, and you deserve all the happiness in the world." "Even like this?" Sophie pointed to her legs. "Especially like this." Emily held both their hands. "You went through something terrible and you're still here fighting, trying. That's what I call true courage." For the first time in a long time, the twins allowed themselves to believe those words, and Emily promised herself she would do everything to turn that fragile belief into unshakable certainty. Dr. Evelyn Reed arrived at the mansion at precisely 9 in the morning, as she did every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. She was a thin woman in her early 50s, with her hair pulled into a bun so tight it stretched the skin on her face, giving her a permanently severe expression. She carried her black leather briefcase and a tablet where she meticulously recorded every session. She found Emily in the living room, where she had transformed part of the space into an activity area. There were colorful cushions on the floor, some scattered toys, and a soft rug where Sophie and Lily were lying on their stomachs, drawing on large sheets of paper. "What is this?" the doctor asked, her voice as sharp as a scalpel. "Where is the physiotherapy equipment? Why aren't the girls in their chairs?" Emily stood up, wiping her hands on her jeans. "Dr. Reed, I'm glad you're here. The girls are doing core strengthening exercises while they draw. It's a way to make physiotherapy more playful." "More playful?" The doctor looked around with disapproval. Miss Carter, physiotherapy is not a game. It is a serious treatment that requires discipline and a rigorous method. But it can be both. Emily maintained a respectful but firm tone. The girls are working the same muscles they would in traditional exercises, but in a way that keeps them engaged and happy. Happiness does not rebuild muscle function. Sophie and Lily had stopped drawing and were watching the exchange with apprehension. They knew that tone from Dr. Reedwell, the tone that preceded lectures about accepting reality and adjusting expectations. "Doctor," Emily intervened calmly, "perhaps we could have this conversation in private?" "There's no need. The girls need to understand the gravity of their condition." The doctor turned to the twins. "Sophie, Lily, we need to resume our proper routine. Let's go up to the room where I can assess you appropriately." "But we're having fun here," Sophie said timidly. "Fun is not the objective of the treatment." Emily took a step forward. "With all due respect, doctor, I disagree. Studies show that children who are emotionally engaged in their therapies have significantly better outcomes. The psychological aspect is just as important as the physical." Dr. Reed turned slowly, her eyes narrowing. "Oh, really? And where exactly did you study medicine, Miss Carter? At which university did you obtain your physiotherapy degree?" Emily felt her face flush. "I don't have a medical degree, but I have practical experience with special needs children, and I know when an approach is working." Practical experience. The doctor practically spat the words. "I have dedicated 30 years to the study of pediatric rehabilitation. I have published articles in international medical journals. I have treated hundreds of cases. And you think your few weeks in a community center qualify you to question my methods? I'm not questioning your technical competence. I'm just suggesting that we consider the girls' emotional well-being as well. Their emotional well-being depends on accepting their reality. The sooner they stop dreaming of impossibilities, the sooner they can build a functional life within their limitations." Sophie began to cry silently. Lily curled up, hiding her face in the paper. Emily felt anger swell in her chest. "With all due respect, doctor, telling 2 7-year-old children they should abandon hope does not seem therapeutic to me. Realistic hope is therapeutic, false hope is cruel." Dr. Reed pointed at the girls. "Look at them. They are crying because they don't want to face the truth. This is the result of your permissive methods. They're crying because you just told them they should give up on getting better." "Do not put words in my mouth. I am simply stating medical facts. Their spinal cord injury is permanent. No amount of drawing or playing will change that." Mrs. Gable appeared at the door, drawn by the raised voices. "Oh no," Emily thought. The housekeeper was on the doctor's side, that was obvious. "Is there a problem, doctor?" Mrs. Gable asked with false concern. "Nothing that can't be resolved by re-establishing the proper order." Dr. Reed closed her tablet with a sharp click. "Mrs. Gable, please take the girls back to their room. I need to speak with Mr. Davies about the incompatibility between Miss Carter's approach and the established medical protocol." Emily felt panic grip her throat. No, she couldn't be fired. Not after just 2 days. Not when Sophie and Lily were just starting to bloom. "Wait," she said quickly. "Please, can we find a middle ground? I can follow your physiotherapy protocols in the morning and keep my complementary activities in the afternoon." The doctor studied her coldly. "Miss Carter, it is not a matter of schedules. It is a matter of treatment philosophy. I believe in preparing these children for the reality of their lives. You believe in selling them impossible dreams. These two approaches are fundamentally incompatible." "What if they're not impossible dreams?" Emily was desperate now. "What if there is a chance for improvement?" "There isn't. The scans are clear. The lesions are definitive. But the brain is plastic, especially in children. I've read about cases where the right stimulation, isolated, anecdotal, non-replicable cases." Dr. Reed shook her head. "This is precisely the problem. You read a few inspirational stories on the internet and think you can perform miracles. I deal with science, not fairy tales." Mrs. Gable was already helping Sophie and Lily back into their wheelchairs. The girls went silently, resigned. All the morning's joy evaporated. "I'm calling Mr. Davies now," the doctor said, taking her phone from her bag. Emily felt pure desperation. She had promised the girls she wouldn't leave. She had promised. to fight for them. And now, because of her temper and inability to yield, everything was falling apart. "Please," she said, and she wasn't ashamed of the tears in her eyes. "Please, give me a chance. 2 weeks. If in 2 weeks the girls don't show measurable improvement, both physically and emotionally, I will accept that your approach is right and follow your protocols to the letter." Dr. Reed paused, considering. "That is an interesting proposal, but how will we measure this improvement? Your own criteria: muscle strength, range of motion, cooperation during exercises, and also appetite, sleep quality, social engagement." The doctor thought for a long moment. "Very well, 2 weeks, but under my conditions. You will follow my daily exercise schedule. You may add your playful activities, but you may not replace any of my prescriptions. And at the end of the 2 weeks, if there is no significant improvement proven by my tests, you will immediately stop these ideas of turning treatment into fun." Emily nodded quickly. "I accept. And one more thing. If at any point I assess that your activities are harming the girls' physical progress, I will stop the experiment immediately and recommend your dismissal to Mr. Davies. Understood?" "Understood." "Very well, Mrs. Gable, you may take the girls back to the living room. We will conduct today's physical assessment." The doctor looked at Emily. "And you, Miss Carter, will observe and learn how proper physiotherapy is done." The next 2 hours were torturous. Dr. Reed subjected Sophie and Lily to a series of mechanical, repetitive, painful exercises. The girls whimpered in discomfort, tears streaming as the doctor manipulated their legs at specific angles, tested reflexes, measured muscle responses. Emily watched it all, her heart breaking. But she also observed something the doctor didn't seem to notice. When the exercises were explained only as medical procedures, the girls resisted, tensed their muscles, making everything harder. But when Emily approached and turned the movement into a game, "Now you're ballerinas. Now you're swimming in the ocean," the girls relaxed, cooperated, and achieved greater ranges of motion. She mentally noted every observation. She had only 2 weeks to prove that love and joy could heal as much as any medical technique. And she wouldn't waste a single day. When Dr. Reed finally left, leaving detailed instructions and a rigid schedule, Emily returned to the living room, where Sophie and Lily remained exhausted in their chairs. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "I'm sorry about that." "It's not your fault," Sophie murmured. "The doctor has always been like that." Emily knelt before them. "Girls, I need your help. I have 2 weeks to prove that my way works, and I can't do it alone. Will you be my partners in this mission?" Lily looked at her with big, frightened eyes. "What if it doesn't work? What if you have to leave?" "Then at least we tried. But I believe it will work. I believe in you." Sophie reached out, her hand. "We believe in you too, Em." And there, in that simple moment, a pact was formed, 3 against the world, a battle that seemed impossible. But as Emily always said, the best victories are the ones won against all odds. The following days were intense. Emily woke before dawn and fell into bed exhausted after midnight, every minute dedicated to proving her approach worked. She religiously followed Dr. Reed's exercise schedule, but transformed every movement into an adventure. Hip flexion became a climb up Mount Everest. Arm strengthening turned into superhero training. Stretches were yoga classes with stories, Dove Eastern masters. And slowly, miraculously, the girls began to respond. On the 5th day, Sophie managed to hold a spoon without dropping it, a seemingly small achievement, but one that hadn't happened in months. Emily celebrated as if it were an Olympic medal, baking a special cake decorated with a spoon drawn in icing. On the 7th day, Lily laughed so hard during a game that Mrs. Gable came to check if everything was all right. She found the 3 of them lying on the rug, making paper airplanes and competing to see which flew farthest. The housekeeper shook her head in disapproval, but Emily noticed a different glint in her eyes, almost like reluctant respect. On the 10th day, both girls ate 3 full meals without complaining. Emily had turned lunch into a picnic in the garden, taking the twins outside the house for the first time. The sun on their faces, the breeze in their hair, the smell of fresh grass, it all awakened something in them that had been dormant. Arthur observed everything from a distance. He would come home from work and see through the windows the therapy sessions disguised as games. He heard the laughter echoing through the corridors. He found the girls' drawings taped to the refrigerator for the first time in a year, and something inside him, that wall of ice and guilt, began to crack. One night, he went down for water and found Emily in the kitchen, studying a pediatric physiotherapy book with intense notes in the margins. "Can't sleep?" he asked, surprising her. Emily jumped, dropping her pen. "Mr. Davies, sorry I didn't hear you come down. I was just reviewing some exercises for tomorrow." Arthur approached, looking at the open book. "That's quite technical for a nanny." "I'm trying to learn as much as I can." Emily closed the notebook where she was taking notes. "Dr. Reed will assess the girls in 4 days. I need to make sure they show real progress." "And are they?" He took a glass from the cupboard, but didn't move away. He remained there, close, and Emily realized it was the longest conversation they'd had since she was hired. "Yes. Sophie has gained strength in her arms. Lily has improved her posture. They are both more alert, more participative. But I don't know if it will be enough for the doctor." Arthur poured water for them both and sat at the table. Emily hesitated, then sat too, maintaining a respectful distance. "Do you really believe they'll get better?" "I do." Emily looked directly into his eyes. "I know science says one thing, but I've seen children overcome impossible diagnoses just because they had the right love and stimulation." He was silent for a long moment. "My wife believed that too, that love could cure anything." His voice was heavy with pain. "She used to say there were no problems too big when there was enough love. She sounds like she was a wise person." "She was." Arthur looked at the glass in his hands. "I met Eleanor in university. I was a poor student trying to pay for my studies by working in construction. She came from a wealthy family, could have had anyone, but she chose the bricklayer who dreamed of being an engineer." Emily's heart ached. "They miss her. They talk about her sometimes." "I know, or rather I imagine. I don't have the courage to ask." "Why not?" "Because if they say they miss her, I'll fall apart. And if they say they don't, I'll know I've completely failed to keep her memory alive." Emily reached out instinctively, lightly touching his arm. "Mr. Davies, they need to talk about her, about what happened. Keeping it all inside only makes it worse." Arthur looked at her hand on his arm, then into her eyes. "How did you get so wise at such a young age?" "I grew up fast. I had to." Emily withdrew her hand, suddenly conscious of the intimacy of the gesture. "I lost my mother when I was 12. My father raised 3 kids alone, working 2 jobs. I learned early that life hits hard, but you can hit back. I'm sorry about your mother. I'm sorry about your wife, too, and for your daughters who lost their mother, and for you, who lost your partner." They sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Then Arthur spoke, so quietly Emily almost didn't hear. "I was driving, it was raining. A lorry ran a red light. I didn't have time to swerve. The car flipped 3 times. It wasn't your fault. It was my responsibility to protect them. I was the driver, the husband, the father, and I failed on every level." Emily took a deep breath. "May I speak frankly, sir?" "You may. You are punishing your daughters for the guilt you feel. They don't need a father who hides. They need a father who fights with them, who cries with them, who is present even when it hurts." Arthur closed his eyes. "I don't know if I can." "Then learn. One step at a time." Emily smiled gently. "Tomorrow, could you come down for breakfast? You don't have to stay long, just 10 minutes, but it would mean the world to them." He looked at her for a long moment, assessing, considering. Finally, he nodded. "All right. Tomorrow." Emily felt joy explode in her chest, but remained composed. "Thank you, the girls will be so happy." Arthur stood up, taking his empty glass. "Emily?" "Yes? Thank you for what you're doing for them, for us." "It's my job, Mr. Davies." "No." He turned at the door. "It's much more than a job. It's a calling, it's love, and I'm grateful for it." After he left, Emily remained seated in the silent kitchen, her heart beating fast. There was something about that man, beyond the pain and guilt, that touched her deeply. An inner strength he himself didn't recognize, a capacity for love so great it had become his biggest weakness. She shook her head, pushing those thoughts away. She couldn't get distracted. She had a mission, to prove to Dr. Reed that Sophie and Lily could get better, and now to convince Arthur to reconnect with his daughters. The next morning she prepared a special breakfast. Star-shaped pancakes, colorful fruits arranged like a rainbow, fresh orange juice. Sophie and Lily were excited, talking about a drawing they wanted to do later. Then Arthur came down the stairs. The silence was instant. The girls froze, forks in mid-air, eyes wide. Arthur stopped on the bottom step, visibly nervous, his hands in his pockets. "Good morning," he said, his voice forcedly casual. "May I join you?" Sophie and Lily looked at each other, then at Emily. She nodded encouragingly. "Of course, Daddy," Sophie said, so quietly it was barely a whisper. Arthur sat at the table, accepting the plate Emily served him. The first few minutes were terribly awkward. No one knew what to say. The sound of cutlery on plates was deafening in the silence. Then Lily, the quieter, more reserved one, spoke. "Daddy, Em taught us how to make paper airplanes. Mine flew really far." Arthur looked at her, really looked for the first time in months. "Did it? You were always good at making things with your hands." Sophie gained courage. "And we painted a picture together, of butterflies. Em said butterflies are special because they turn into something beautiful, even though they start as caterpillars." "Your mother loved butterflies." Arthur smiled, a small but genuine smile. "We had butterflies in the garden of our old house, do you remember?" "We remember," the twins said together, and there were tears in their eyes now. But they were good tears. Emily felt a lump in her throat. This simple moment of connection. It was more powerful than any therapy, more healing than any medicine. Arthur stayed for the promised 10 minutes, and then 5 more, and then another 10. When he finally stood up to go to work, he leaned down and kissed the top of each daughter's head. A small gesture, but one he hadn't made in a whole year. Sophie and Lily cried after he left, but they were tears of joy, of hope, of a love that was beginning to heal deep wounds. "He still loves us," Lily whispered, as if she couldn't believe it. "He always has," Emily said, hugging them both. "He was just lost, but he's finding his way back, to you, home." And for the first time since the accident, the twins allowed themselves to believe that maybe, just maybe, they could be a whole family again. The 12th day dawned overcast, with the threat of rain hanging in the air. Emily woke with a knot in her stomach. There were only 2 days left until Dr. Reed's final assessment, and despite all the visible progress, she feared it wouldn't be enough. The doctor wanted numbers, objective measurements, not smiles and happy moments. She spent the morning doing extra exercises with Sophie and Lily, timing each movement, noting every small improvement. Sophie's range of motion had increased by 15 degrees. Lily could hold an upright posture for 2 minutes longer than before. These were real, measurable progresses, but would they be enough? In the afternoon, while the girls rested, Emily went downstairs to find Mrs. Gable organizing the pantry. "Can I help?" she offered. The housekeeper looked at her, surprised. "A nanny who offers to do housework. That's a first. I'm not just a nanny, I'm part of this house now." Emily began to arrange cans on the shelves. "Mrs. Gable, can I ask you something?" "Depends on the question." "Why are you so skeptical about my work with the girls?" The housekeeper sighed, her hands pausing mid-task. "Because I've seen too many broken promises in this house, Miss Carter. I've seen nannies arrive full of ideas, making the girls dream, and then leave when reality proved more difficult than they imagined." "But I'm not going to leave." "That's what they all say." Mrs. Gable turned to her. "You don't understand what it's like to care for special needs children day after day, month after month. The exhaustion, the frustration, the pain of seeing that nothing you do seems to be enough." "Then help me understand. Tell me about them before the accident." The housekeeper's face softened, just a little. They were little stars. They ran through this house like hurricanes, laughing, playing, filling every corner with joy. Sophie was the adventurous one, always getting into trouble. Lily was the dreamer, always with a book in her hands, and together they were inseparable. And their mother. Mrs. Eleanor was like, "You." Mrs. Gable said it almost reluctantly. Full of ideas, always turning everything into a game, always believing that love solved everything. And you know what happened? She's gone, and she left us all lost. Emily felt compassion for the woman before her. You love the family. I do, that's why I'm hard, because I can't allow more hopes to be built up just to be shattered. But hope is all we have, Mrs. Gable. Without hope, what's left? Realism, acceptance, adaptation. Emily shook her head. Those things come later. First, there must be hope, the belief that it's worth trying. The housekeeper was silent for a long moment. Then softly she said, "You remind me so much of her, Mrs. Eleanor. Stubborn, idealistic, impossible to convince when you believe in something. I'll take that as a compliment." "You should. She was the best person I ever knew." Mrs. Gable returned to her work, but there was less harshness in her movements. "I just hope you're stronger than you look, because Dr. Reed will not make it easy for you." "I know, but I have to try." That evening, Arthur came home earlier. It was becoming a habit, this gradual change in his routine. He found Emily in the living room with the girls, the three of them watching an animated movie about a brave princess. "May I watch with you?" he asked from the doorway. Sophie and Lily shouted in unison, "Yes!" He sat on the sofa, and Lily shyly moved closer, resting her head on his shoulder. Sophie soon did the same on the other side. Arthur was stiff for a moment, then relaxed, wrapping them both in his arms. Emily felt tears burn but held them back. This moment wasn't about her. It was about a family. Reconnecting, healing. When the movie ended and the girls were sleepy, Arthur carried them upstairs. Emily offered to help, but he shook his head. "I want to do this." After the girls were in bed, Arthur came down and found Emily still in the living room, tidying up toys. "I need to talk to you about the assessment," he said. Emily's heart skipped a beat. "Did you speak with Dr. Reed?" "She called me today, said she's concerned about the unconventional methods being applied, questioned if I'm aware of the risks of creating false hope in the girls." "And what did you say?" Arthur sat down, running his hands through his hair. "I told her she has my trust, but she insisted that she needs to see concrete, measurable results, or she will recommend a return to traditional protocols and a nanny more, aligned with her philosophy." Emily felt the floor drop out from under her. "So if I don't prove they've improved enough, I'll be fired?" "Basically, yes." Arthur looked at her with a tormented expression. "And the worst part is, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. What if the doctor is right? What if I'm allowing my daughters to be harmed by unproven methods? You've seen your daughters today. You've seen how different they are, more alive, happier. Happiness isn't the same as physical healing, but it contributes to it. Mr. Davies, in all the research I've read, in all the cases I've studied, there's a common factor in extraordinary recoveries, the patient's emotional state. Children who want to live, who have reasons to fight, recover better." Arthur got up, starting to pace. "But what if you're wrong? What if in 6 months, a year, they're still exactly as they are now, but with the added pain of having believed they could be different? Then at least we tried. At least we gave them a chance at hope, at joy, at a childhood. Isn't that better than resignation and sadness?" He stopped at the window, looking out at the dark garden. "My wife would have said that, exactly that." "Then maybe you should listen to her, even if she's not here anymore." Arthur turned. "You would have loved her. She would have loved you. You're so similar it sometimes hurts to look at you." Emily felt a strange sensation in her chest, an emotion she couldn't name. "I'm sorry if my presence causes you pain." "It doesn't cause pain. It causes hope. And that scares me even more." He moved closer. "You brought hope back into this house. You made my daughters smile again. You made me want to come home at night, and that's so powerful it terrifies me." "Why does it terrify you?" "Because I can't lose again. I can't let more hope enter this house just to be ripped away. I won't survive that a second time." Emily took a step towards him. "Then don't let it happen. Fight with me, support me at the assessment. Show Dr. Reed that you believe in what we're doing. And if it's not enough, then we'll face it together. But at least we tried." Arthur looked at her for a long moment, and Emily felt the intensity of his gaze to her bones. There was something there, something more than gratitude, more than professional respect, but neither of them was ready to name it. "All right," he said finally. "I'll be present at the assessment, and I'll give you my full support." "Thank you, Mr. Davies." "Arthur. You can call me Arthur." The name left her, lips like a forbidden intimacy. "Arthur." He smiled, a sad but genuine smile. "Good night, Emily." "Good night, Arthur." After he went upstairs, Emily stood in the dark living room, her heart racing. She had crossed some invisible line in that conversation, admitted feelings she shouldn't have. She was the nanny, he was her employer, and there was still the ghost of Eleanor, a perfect woman Emily could never replace. But at the same time, she couldn't deny what she felt. The admiration that had grown into respect, that had turned into something deeper, more frightening. And from the way Arthur had looked at her, she suspected he felt the same. She shook her head, pushing those thoughts away. She couldn't get distracted now. Not when there were only 2 days left until the most important assessment of her life. 2 days to prove that Sophie and Lily could overcome their diagnoses. 2 days to save her job, her mission, her newfound family. She went up to her room connected to the girls. She peeked through the ajar door and saw them both sleeping peacefully, Sophie hugging one of the teddy bears, Lily with a book still open beside. "I will fight for you," she whispered. "With everything I have, I promise." And that promise echoed in the silent night, carrying with it all the strength of a woman who had learned early on that the greatest miracles happen when you refuse to give up, even when all the odds are against you. The day of the assessment arrived with a sky that was too clear, as if nature were mocking the storm brewing inside the mansion. Emily woke at 5 in the morning, unable to sleep any longer. She reviewed her notes for the 10th time, checked the measurements she had recorded, and mentally prepared every argument she would need to use. Sophie and Lily were nervous too. They had picked up on the tension in the air, understood that this day would be decisive. During breakfast, they ate in silence, their eyes fixed on Emily as if she were their only anchor in a stormy sea. "It's going to be okay," Emily said, trying to sound more confident than she felt. "You've made so much progress. Dr. Reed will see it." "What if she doesn't?" Sophie asked, her voice small. "Then we'll make her see it." Emily smiled, taking both their hands. "We're a team, remember? And teams don't give up." Arthur came down dressed for work, but instead of leaving, he sat at the table with them. "I've decided to stay today. I want to be present during the assessment." Emily's eyes filled with grateful tears. "Thank you." Dr. Reed arrived promptly at 9, accompanied by Mrs. Gable, who carried a thick folder of documents. The doctor wore her immaculate white coat and brought 2 assistants Emily had never seen before, apparently to give more official weight to the assessment. "Mr. Davies," she greeted coldly. "Miss Carter. Girls." They set up in the living room that had been turned into a therapy area. Dr. Reed positioned herself like a judge in a courtroom, her assistants on either side taking notes on tablets. "Let's begin," she said, opening her own folder. "For the past 2 weeks, Miss Carter has had the autonomy to implement her methods while maintaining my basic exercise protocol. Today, we will assess if there has been measurable progress to justify continuing this unconventional approach." Emily took a deep breath. "The girls are ready to show you what they've learned. First, the standard physical tests." The doctor approached Sophie with a measuring instrument. Range of motion, right hip. What followed was a torturous hour of clinical tests. Dr. Reed measured angles, tested reflexes, assessed muscle strength with the cold precision of a scientist dissecting specimens. Sophie and Lily cooperated, but Emily could see the fear growing in their eyes with each test. Finally, the doctor stepped back, making extensive notes. Her assistants whispered to each other, comparing numbers on their tablets. Well, Dr. Reed said finally, there is some progress. Sophie has gained 8 degrees of range in her hip. Lily has improved her arm strength by approximately 15%. That's wonderful, Emily exclaimed. 8 degrees might not sound like much, but for children in their condition, it is minimal progress, the doctor interrupted. Within the normal range of variation expected with conventional physiotherapy, nothing here suggests that your playful methods have added any measurable value. But they have, Emily insisted. The girls are more engaged, more cooperative. They eat better, sleep better, they actively participate in the sessions. Improved emotional state does not equate to physical recovery. Dr. Reed closed her folder with a definitive sound. What I see here are 2 children who have made marginal progress, no different from what they would have made with traditional therapy and fewer resources wasted on recreational activities. Arthur stepped forward. Doctor, with all due respect, my daughters are happier. That has to count for something. Of course it counts, Mr. Davies, but it doesn't change the fundamental diagnosis. The doctor turned to the twins. Girls, do you feel that you are walking better? That your legs have gotten stronger? Sophie and Lily looked at each other, confused and frightened by the direct question. No, Sophie admitted quietly. We still can't walk. Exactly. And you will understand sooner or later that you won't be able to. That is the reality you need to accept. Don't say that to them, Emily burst out. They're children. They deserve hope. They deserve the truth. Dr. Reed approached Emily, her voice as sharp as a scalpel. Miss Carter, I know your intentions are good, but misplaced kindness causes more harm than good. These girls need to learn to live with their limitations, not dream of impossibilities. What if they aren't impossibilities? Emily was desperate now. What if there's a chance, even a small one? There isn't. The scans are conclusive. The doctor turned to Arthur. Mr. Davies, as the physician responsible for your daughters, I formally recommend a return to the established protocols and the hiring of a suitably qualified rehabilitation professional. The silence that followed was devastating. Emily saw her world crumbling. Sophie began to cry silently. Lily hugged her sister, her own eyes welling up. Arthur looked from Emily to his daughters, then to the doctor. His expression was tormented, divided. Dr. Reed, I appreciate your assessment, but I need time to consider. There is nothing to consider, the doctor said firmly. The science is clear. Even so, this is my house, these are my daughters, and I will make the decision I see fit. The doctor stiffened. Very well. But I insist on documenting that I advised against the continuation of these unproven methods. If there are any future complications, it will be on record that I gave adequate warning. She left with her assistants, leaving a chilling void. Mrs. Gable remained at the door, her expression unreadable. Emily knelt before Sophie and Lily. It doesn't matter what the doctor said, you are getting better, I've seen it, I've felt it, but she's a doctor. Sophie sobbed. She knows more than you. She knows about medicine, but I know about you, about your hearts, your dreams, your strength. Arthur approached, his voice heavy. Emily, can I speak with you? In private. Emily's heart sank. She nodded and followed him to the office, knowing what was coming. Arthur closed the door and stood with his back to her for a long moment. When he finally turned, there was pain in his eyes. I don't know what's right anymore. You saw your daughters. You saw how different they are. I did, but I also saw the numbers. The physical progress was minimal. But there was progress, and they're happy. And what if happiness isn't enough? Arthur ran his hands over his face. What if in a year they're still in wheelchairs, but with the added pain of having believed they could be different? How will I deal with that guilt on top of all the others? So you're giving up. Emily felt anger mixed with despair. You're going to send away the first person who made your daughters smile in a year because a cold doctor said the numbers weren't good enough. It's not that simple. It is. It's exactly that simple. Emily stepped forward. You're afraid of hope, afraid of love, afraid of trying. Because as long as you don't try, you can't fail. But you know what happens? Your daughters fail. They're the ones who pay the price for your cowardice. How dare you call me a coward? Then prove you're not. Fight for your daughters. Believe in them. In me. In us. Arthur turned to the window, his shoulders tense. Mrs. Gable spoke to me yesterday. She said you've been good for the girls, that they're more alive, but she also said you're creating a dangerous emotional dependency. That if you leave now, it will destroy them. Then don't send me away. But what if the doctor is right? What if I'm putting my daughters at risk by keeping you here? The only risk is robbing them of the chance for a happy childhood. Emily felt tears stream down her face. Please, Arthur, don't do this. He finally faced her, and Emily saw the decision already made in his eyes. I'm sorry, Emily. I truly am. You brought light into this house. But I can't risk my daughter's well-being based on feelings and hopes. I need to follow the science, the qualified professionals. So you're firing me. I'm releasing you from this responsibility. The formal tone was back. You will be paid for the full month, plus a generous severance. You can pack your things today. Emily felt as if she had been punched in the gut. And the girls, will I be able to say goodbye? Arthur hesitated, then shook his head. I think it's better if you don't. It will be easier for them if you just leave. Easier for whom? For them or for you? He didn't answer, just opened the door. An eloquent silence that said everything. Emily walked past him with her head held high, refusing to break down there. She went up to her room, closed the door, and only then allowed the tears to fall freely. She had failed. Failed Sophie, failed Lily, failed herself. She packed her few belongings mechanically. But before she left, she picked up 2 small teddy bears she had bought weeks ago, planning to give them to the girls on a special occasion. She wrote a simple note for each. To Sophie, with love. Never stop dreaming. And to Lily, with love. You are stronger than you think. She left the bears at the door of the girls' room, knowing she wouldn't have the courage to go in and see them one last time. Then she went down the stairs, crossed the marble hall that had once seemed so imposing, and walked out the front door. She didn't look back. Sophie woke up with the feeling that something was wrong. The sun was streaming through the window, just like always. The birds were singing in the garden, but there was an emptiness in the air she couldn't explain. She turned in her bed and saw Lily already awake, holding a teddy bear that hadn't been there the night before. Where did that come from? Sophie asked. Lily showed her the note attached to the bear. From M. There's one for you too on your table. Sophie reached for her own bear, identical to Lily's, and read the note with trembling hands. Never stop dreaming. The words danced in her vision as tears began to fall. Where's M? As if in answer, the door opened, and a woman they had never seen before entered. She was tall, thin, with grey hair pulled back rigidly, and a face that knew no smiles. She wore a white nurse's uniform and carried a clipboard. Good morning, girls. My name is Ms. Finch. I am your new rehabilitation professional. Dr. Reed hired me personally. Where's Emily? Lily asked, her voice trembling. Miss Carter no longer works here. Miss Finch spoke with the same emotion she would use to describe the weather. Now let's get up to begin our morning exercises. We have a lot of work to do. No? Sophie hugged her bear tightly. We want M. Where is she? I already told you she no longer works here. Now stop this drama. You are big girls, not babies. But she didn't say goodbye, Lily cried. She promised she wouldn't leave. Promises change. Life goes on. Miss Finch approached with efficient, affectionless movements. Let's start with basic stretches. Lie on your backs. The twins didn't move. They clung to each other, the teddy bears clutched between them like shields against this new, frightening reality. If you do not cooperate, I will have to report it to Dr. Reed. That will not please your father. But there was no cooperation. Sophie and Lily simply shut down, refusing to participate, to speak, to acknowledge Miss Finch's presence. When she tried to physically move them to start the exercises, Sophie screamed so loudly that Mrs. Gable came running. What is happening here? The girls are being difficult. Miss Finch crossed her arms. They refused to cooperate with their treatment. Mrs. Gable looked at Sophie and Lily, huddled on the bed, their faces wet with tears, and something in her hardened heart cracked slightly. Give them time. Let them process the change. Time is not therapy, but I will report this to Mr. Davies. When Arthur came home that night, he found his daughters exactly as they had been in the morning. They hadn't eaten, hadn't done their exercises, hadn't left the bed. They just held the teddy bears and cried softly. "Girls," he approached, his heart breaking. "I know you're upset, but you need to cooperate with Miss Finch. She's here to help." "We don't want her," Sophie said, her voice hoarse from crying. "We want Em." Emily had to leave, but Miss Finch is very qualified. "You sent her away," Lily accused, looking at her father for the first time with something akin to anger. "You promised you would support her and you lied." Arthur felt as if he'd been slapped. "Lily, it wasn't like that." "It was." Sophie hugged her sister. "You always do this. You always leave. You always let everyone go. First Mommy, now Em." The mention of Eleanor was like a knife in Arthur's chest. "Your mother didn't leave by choice." "But Em did, because you sent her." Sophie turned away, giving her back to her father. "Go away now. We don't want to talk to you." Arthur stood paralyzed, his daughter's words echoing painfully. He looked to Mrs. Gable for support, but the housekeeper just shook her head sadly. "Let them rest, sir. Tomorrow is another day." But tomorrow was no better, nor the day after. Sophie and Lily entered a spiral of regression that frightened even Dr. Reed. They stopped eating almost completely, accepting only small sips of water. They developed inexplicable fevers that no medicine seemed to touch. Lily stopped speaking entirely, communicating only through glances and minimal gestures. A week after Emily's departure, the family pediatrician was called. Dr. Peterson, a man in his 60s with decades of experience, examined the girls thoroughly and called Arthur for a private conversation. "Mr. Davies, I need to be frank. The girls are falling ill from emotional distress. There is nothing physically wrong to explain the symptoms, but that doesn't make them any less dangerous." "Emotional distress," Arthur repeated, feeling the weight of those words. Children, especially those who have already been through significant trauma, can develop severe physical symptoms when subjected to further emotional loss. The body simply gives up fighting. But they have everything. Excellent medical care, a comfortable home, everything they need. Dr. Peterson looked at Arthur with an expression that mixed compassion and frustration. "Mr. Davies, your daughters don't need things. They need love, connection, hope. And they had that with Miss Carter. When she left, it was like losing their mother all over again." Arthur sank into his chair. "I thought I was protecting them, following proper medical advice. Sometimes the best medicine doesn't come in a pill or a procedure. It comes in the form of genuine affection." The doctor closed his briefcase. "I will be very clear. If the girls continue on this trajectory of refusing food and isolating themselves, we will need to consider hospitalization, and that will only worsen their trauma." After the doctor left, Arthur went up to the twins' room. Miss Finch was there, unsuccessfully trying to get Sophie to drink a glass of juice. "They won't listen to me," the nurse complained. "I've tried everything. Perhaps they need more serious psychiatric intervention." Arthur dismissed her with a gesture and sat on the edge of Sophie's bed. His daughter turned her face away, refusing to look at him. Lily was in the other bed, Emily's teddy bear clutched to her chest, her eyes fixed on the ceiling. "Girls, I'm so sorry." His voice broke. "I'm sorry for everything." Sophie finally looked at him, and Arthur saw in those eyes a pain no child should ever carry. "We just wanted her to stay, that's all we wanted." "I know, and I ruined it." "You always ruin everything," Sophie said, and though the words were harsh, they were spoken with more sadness than anger. "You don't know how to love us anymore." Arthur felt tears burn his eyes. "I do love you, more than anything." "Then why do you always choose things that make us sad?" "Because I'm afraid." Arthur admitted the truth he had been avoiding. "Afraid of losing, afraid of hope, afraid of taking a risk, and because of that fear I'm losing you anyway." Lily sat up for the first time in days. She didn't speak, but her eyes said it all. There was a question there. "What are you going to do?" Arthur looked at his daughters, truly saw them, and understood with terrifying clarity what he had done. He had removed the one person who had made them feel loved, safe, alive. And why? Out of fear disguised as responsibility. Out of cowardice dressed as prudence. "I'm going to bring her back," he said. "I'm going to find Emily and bring her back." Sophie shook her head, fresh tears falling. "She won't want to come back. You sent her away. You hurt her too." "Then I'll beg. I'll do whatever it takes. But I won't let you waste away like this. I won't lose anyone else I love because of my fear." Lily reached out her hand, touching her father's arm. It was the first voluntary contact in a week. Arthur took that small, fragile hand and made a promise he intended to keep, no matter the cost. "I'm going to fix this. Somehow I'm going to fix everything." But as he went downstairs to begin the search for Emily, an inner voice whispered cruel doubts. What if she didn't forgive him? What if she had moved on? What if he had destroyed the last chance of happiness for his family? He found Mrs. Gable in the kitchen, preparing tea she knew no one would drink. "I need Emily's address. Any information we have on her." The housekeeper looked at him for a long moment. "You finally realize it, don't you? What you lost?" "Yes, and I'm going to get it back. Somehow." Mrs. Gable went to her office and returned with a thin file. Emily didn't leave much when she was hired, just an old address that might not be valid anymore and a phone number that goes to voicemail. Arthur took the file, a leaden weight settling in his stomach. "I'll find her, no matter how long it takes." "Then you'd better hurry." The housekeeper glanced towards the ceiling where the girls' rooms were, "because they don't have much time left. And frankly, Mr. Davies, I don't know how much more my heart can take watching those children suffer." Arthur nodded, determination hardening in his chest. He would start the search immediately, because the alternative, watching his daughters give up on life, was something he could not, would not, allow to happen. Not this time. This time, he would fight. Arthur spent the next 3 days in a frantic search. The address on Emily's file led him to a modest building in East London, where a neighbour informed him that she had moved out 2 weeks ago, right after leaving her job at the mansion. She had no new address. The phone continued to go straight to voicemail. He hired a private investigator who scoured records, contacted former employers, and followed every available lead. Emily Carter seemed to have vanished as if she had never existed, or as if she were deliberately hiding. Meanwhile, at the mansion, Sophie and Lily continued to fade. The fever wouldn't break. They barely drank water. Lily hadn't said a single word. Sophie only spoke to ask for M in delirious whispers during the night. Dr. Peterson returned, his expression growing graver. "Mr. Davies, I have to be direct. If there's no improvement in the next 48 hours, I'll have to admit them. The dehydration is becoming critical." Arthur felt the world spin. 48 hours. He had only 48 hours to find Emily. Mrs. Gable found him in his office late at night, surrounded by papers and phone numbers, his eyes red with exhaustion. "Go and rest, sir. You're not helping anyone like this." "I can't rest. Not while my daughters are dying." The forbidden word finally spoken aloud. Mrs. Gable sat down heavily. "I never should have agreed to her leaving." "You tried to warn me. Everyone did. But I didn't listen." "Because you were frightened," the housekeeper sighed. "Miss Emily stirred something in you, didn't she? Not just gratitude. Something more." Arthur looked at her, surprised by her perception. "I don't know what I feel. I only know I need her back. For the girls. For me. For all of us." "And what if you find her and she refuses to come back? You hurt her, Mr. Davies. Deeply." "Then I will beg. I'll get on my knees if I have to. But I will not let my daughters give up on life without fighting for them first." Upstairs, Sophie held Lily's hand as they both burned with fever. "Daddy will find her," Sophie whispered, though she wasn't sure. She believed it. He promised. Lily squeezed her sister's hand, too weak for anything more. In her feverish dreams, she saw Emily laughing, making pancakes, turning exercises into adventures. She saw her mother too, the two women merging into one, love and loss intertwined inseparably. On the morning of the 4th day, the investigator finally called. I think I've found something. There's a children's home in South London, Hope House. A woman matching Miss Carter's description started volunteering there 2 weeks ago. It's not on any official records, but some neighbours have seen her. Arthur didn't wait for more information. He grabbed his car keys and left, driving through the streets of London with an urgency he hadn't felt since the night of the accident. Hope House was a simple building, with walls in need of paint and a small garden where a few children were playing under supervision. He parked abruptly and went inside. A white-haired woman greeted him at the reception. "Can I help you?" "I'm looking for Emily Carter. I was told she works here." The woman studied him with an experienced eye. "And you are?" "Arthur Davies. I'm the father of the girls she used to care for." "Ah." The woman's expression turned cold. "Emily mentioned you. I need to speak with her. It's urgent." "She doesn't want to speak with you." "Please. My daughters are very ill. They need her. And she needed the job you took from her." The woman crossed her arms. "Do you know how many times I've found Emily crying in the bathroom these past 2 weeks? How many nights she's spent awake, worried about those girls you wouldn't even let her say goodbye to?" Arthur felt shame burn his face. "I know, I was wrong, terribly wrong. But please, let me explain to her. Let me beg for her forgiveness." The woman hesitated, then sighed. "She's out back in the playground, but if she tells you to leave, you leave immediately. Understood?" "Understood." Arthur walked through the narrow hallway and out into a small courtyard at the back. And there, sitting on a low bench, was Emily. She was holding a small boy in her lap, reading a story in that soft voice Arthur would recognize anywhere. Around her, 5 or 6 children listened intently, some in wheelchairs, others on crutches, all clearly with special needs. Emily looked up and saw him. The colour drained from her face. She said something quietly to the children, who an assistant came to gather, protesting. Then she stood up, her arms crossed defensively over her chest. "What do you want here, Arthur?" He approached slowly, as if approaching a wounded animal. "I need you. The girls need you. You need me now. Where was this need when you sent me away without even letting me say goodbye? I was wrong. Completely, terribly wrong." Emily laughed, a bitter, joyless sound. "Wrong. What a convenient word. Erases everything, doesn't it? All the tears, all the pain. It erases nothing." Arthur took another step. "But I need you to know what's happened since you left." He told her everything, the girls refusing to eat, the inexplicable fevers, Lily stopping her speech, the doctor's warning about hospitalization. Emily listened with an increasingly tormented expression, silent tears streaming down her face. "They have a new nurse," she said finally. "That Ms. Finch that Dr. Reed chose. Let her take care of them." "They don't want Ms. Finch. They want you. Sophie says your name in her sleep. Lily holds the teddy bear you left as if it's the only thing keeping her alive. You hurt me, Arthur." Emily wiped her tears angrily. "You hurt those girls and now you want me to come back and risk it happening all over again? It won't happen again. I promise. You promised to support me before too. You promised to trust me, and at the first sign of pressure you chose the cold doctor over me." Arthur swallowed hard. "Because I was afraid of hope, of love, of taking a risk. But I've learned in the most painful way possible that fear doesn't protect anyone. It only destroys. I don't know if I can trust you again." "Then don't trust me. Trust your love for the girls. They're giving up, Emily, giving up on life. And I know the only person who can bring them back is you." Emily turned, looking at the children's home behind her. "I've found a purpose here. Children who need me without complications, without rich bosses judging me, without doctors questioning me. And are you happy?" The question caught her off guard. She opened her mouth to say yes, but the words wouldn't come, because she wasn't happy. She was empty, going through the motions, helping because it was what she knew how to do, but without the passion, without the deep connection she had with Sophie and Lily. "I miss them," she finally admitted, her voice breaking. "Every single day. I wake up wondering if they've eaten, if they've done their exercises, if anyone is making them laugh. Then come back, please. Arthur took the final step, close enough to touch but not daring to. Come back and bring my daughters back to life. Bring my family back. Bring me back. And when the next crisis comes, when Dr. Reed shows up with more numbers and more grim predictions, will you send me away again? No, Dr. Reed no longer works for us. I fired her. Emily looked up, surprised. You fired her? Along with Miss Finch. I realized their professional qualifications didn't matter if they had no compassion, no ability to see my daughters as complete human beings. And Mrs. Gable? She's on your side now. She said herself she never should have supported your departure. Emily turned away, fighting the hope that was beginning to blossom. What are you offering me, Arthur, exactly? He took a deep breath. Complete autonomy in the girls' care, double the salary, protection from any interference, and most importantly, my unconditional support. I will be present. I will participate. I will trust you even when it's frightening. And if I fail, if despite everything, the girls don't get better, then at least we will have tried together, as it should have been from the start. Emily was silent for a long moment, the weight of the decision palpable in the air. Finally, she looked into his eyes. I'll come on one condition. Anything. You stop hiding from them. You stop using work and guilt as excuses. You become the father they need, present and emotionally available. Because I can't do this alone, they need you as much as they need me. Arthur nodded, tears finally falling freely. I promise. And this time, I'll keep it. All right. Emily wiped her own face. I'll get my things. Can we go now? Now. Immediately. As they drove back to the mansion, Emily stared out the window, her heart racing. Was she doing the right thing, or was she setting herself up for more pain? But then she thought of Sophie and Lily, sick with sadness, holding the teddy bears she had left, and she knew she had no choice. She loved those girls, and true love is always worth the risk. The mansion was shrouded in a heavy silence when Arthur and Emily arrived. It was mid-afternoon, but it seemed as if the sunlight couldn't fully penetrate the windows, as if the sadness inside the house repelled any joy from the outside. Mrs. Gable met them at the door, her eyes wide when she saw Emily. Thank heavens. You found her. How are they? Emily asked immediately. Bad, very bad. The housekeeper discreetly wiped away a tear. Dr. Peterson was here an hour ago. He said if there's no improvement by tomorrow morning, he'll have to admit them. Their bodies can't go on like this. Emily felt panic grip her throat. Can I see them? They're sleeping. Or rather, unconscious, I'm not sure. The fever has made them so weak. Arthur touched Emily's arm gently. Go. They need you. Emily climbed the stairs with trembling legs. Each step felt like it weighed a ton. The corridor to the girls' room had never seemed so long. When she finally reached the door, she paused, her hand on the knob, gathering her courage. She pushed the door open slowly. The room was dark, curtains drawn again, the air heavy with the smell of sickness. In the beds, two small figures lay motionless, so pale they looked like ghosts. Sophie had the teddy bear clutched to her chest. Lily held hers against her face, as if she could capture some trace of Emily's scent from it. Emily approached, tears falling freely now. What had she done? How had she allowed them to get to this point? She sat on the edge of Sophie's bed, gently touching the girl's forehead. It was burning. She did the same with Lily. The fever was intense, dangerous. Sophie, Lily, she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. It's me. I'm back. No response. The girls remained still, only their shallow breathing indicating they were still alive. Emily began to sing softly, a lullaby her own mother used to sing to her, a song about stars that never stop shining, even when the clouds hide them. Her voice filled the room, gentle but firm, carrying all the love she felt. Mrs. Gable appeared at the door with Arthur. He was about to enter, but the housekeeper held his arm, shaking her head. Let her work. Emily continued to sing, stroking the girls' hair, adjusting their blankets, talking about all the things they would do together when they were better, about pancakes in the garden, about adventure stories, about butterflies and dreams. An hour passed. 2. The afternoon turned into evening. Arthur wanted to go in several times, but Mrs. Gable stopped him. She knows what she's doing. Give it time. Finally, just after 8 o'clock, Sophie stirred. It was a small, almost imperceptible movement, but Emily saw it. Sophie moaned softly, and her eyes fluttered, trying to open. "Sophie." "Darling, I'm here." Emily took her hand. "Can you hear me?" Sophie's eyes finally opened, cloudy and confused. "Em, is it really you? Or am I dreaming?" "It's really me. I came back." Sophie began to cry, a weak but relieved cry. "You left. You left us. I'm so sorry. So sorry." Emily kissed the girl's forehead. "But I'm here now, and I'm not leaving again. I promise. Daddy will send you away again." "He won't. He brought me back. He understands he was wrong." Sophie turned her head, seeing her father in the doorway. Arthur took a step. Inside, tears falling freely. "I'm sorry, sweetheart. I'm sorry for everything. You hurt us, Daddy. I know. And I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you." Lily was also beginning to stir. Her eyes opened and fixed on Emily. For a moment, there was no reaction, just a blank stare. Then, as if waking from a nightmare, Lily reached out her arms. Emily scooped her up, rocking her as if she were a baby. "I'm here, my love. I'm here." Lily began to cry, and then, for the first time in weeks, she spoke. "I thought you went away forever like Mommy." Emily's heart clenched. "No, not like your Mommy. Your mother didn't choose to leave. And I choose to stay. Forever, if you'll have me." "We want you," Sophie and Lily said together. Arthur approached, kneeling beside the bed. "Girls, can I promise you something? From now on, we're a team, me, you, and Emily. And teams don't separate, no matter what happens." Sophie reached her hand out to her father. "Do you really promise?" "I promise, with everything I am." They stayed like that for long minutes, the four of them embracing, crying together, all the tears they had held back. Mrs. Gable watched from the door, wiping her own eyes, seeing this broken family begin to piece itself back together. Eventually, Emily managed to get the girls to drink some water. Then they accepted a few spoonfuls of soup that Mrs. Gable had prepared. Not much, but it was a start. "You need to rest now," Emily said softly, "but I'm going to stay here, all night. If you wake up and feel scared, I'll be here. You promise?" "I promise." Sophie looked at Lily, then back at Emily. "Can you sleep here? With us? Like a real family?" Emily looked at Arthur, uncertain. He nodded encouragingly. "Of course I can." She lay down on the floor between the two beds, one hand holding Sophie's, the other holding Lily's. Arthur pulled up a chair and sat nearby, refusing to leave. The girls fell asleep, their breathing gradually becoming deeper, more stable. The fever began to break, as if Emily's presence was the medicine their bodies had been waiting for. When they were finally sleeping soundly, Arthur whispered, "Thank you for coming back, for forgiving me." "I haven't completely forgiven you yet," Emily replied, quietly, honestly. "That will take time, but I love these girls enough to try. That's all I can ask for." They sat in silence for a while, just watching the twins sleep. Then Arthur spoke again. "Emily, can I ask you something?" "You can." "Why did you come back? Really? It wasn't just for the girls, was it?" Emily thought carefully. "I came back because I couldn't live knowing they were suffering. Because I feel complete with them in a way I don't feel anywhere else. And yes, I came back because I believe you can be the man you promised to be, the father your daughters deserve. And what if I disappoint you again? Then I'll remind you of your promises. I'll make you fight, even when you want to give up. Because now it's not just about you or your daughters. It's about all of us as a family." "Family," Arthur repeated, testing the word. "I like that." Emily smiled in the darkness. "Me too." As the night wore on, Mrs. Gable brought blankets and pillows. Arthur refused to go to his own room, preferring to spend the night in the uncomfortable chair. He wasn't going to leave his family. not now that he was finally starting to feel whole again. Around 3 in the morning, Sophie woke up and asked for water. Emily helped her drink, noticing that her fever had dropped considerably. Lily woke up too, and for the first time in weeks, she smiled. "You're coming back," Emily whispered, kissing both their foreheads. "Coming back to me." "We never left," Sophie said sleepily. "We were just waiting for you to come back to us too." And those words summed it all up. The connection between them had never been broken, only stretched to the near breaking point. But true love is resilient. It survives distance, pain, even near loss. When the sun rose on a new day, Dr. Peterson arrived prepared to arrange for their admission to the hospital. Instead, he found 2 girls with broken fevers, eating oatmeal porridge and laughing at something Emily was telling them. "Well," he said, examining them thoroughly, "this is extraordinary. Yesterday they were on the verge of total collapse. Today they are practically normal." "Love is a powerful medicine," said Arthur, his hand resting on Emily's shoulder. "Apparently so." The doctor shook his head in wonder. "I can't explain it medically, but I'm not going to question it. Keep doing whatever you're doing." After he left, Sophie looked at Emily with her serious almond eyes. "Em, are you really going to stay forever?" "I am, no matter what. Even if we can never walk? Especially then, because you are perfect just the way you are." Lily took Emily's hand. "We love you." "And I love you, more than words can say." Arthur watched the scene, his heart overflowing with gratitude and something more, something he wasn't ready to name yet, but that grew stronger every day. He looked at Emily, at the way she held his daughters, at the clear love in every gesture, every word, and he knew, with absolute certainty, that it wasn't just his daughters who had found salvation in this extraordinary woman. He had too, and somehow he needed to find the courage to admit it, to himself and to her. The following weeks were a time of gradual recovery. Sophie and Lily started eating normally again, sleeping without nightmares, smiling and playing. But something had changed in them. There was a new fragility, a fear of abandonment that lingered even in the happiest moments. Emily noticed how they always checked to see if she was still nearby, how they asked multiple times a day if she was going to stay, how they clung to her at night, needing the physical security of her presence. "She's not leaving," Arthur said one night, finding Sophie sitting in the hallway, clearly waiting to hear Emily moving in her room. "I promised you, and promises are sacred." "People promise things and then change their minds," Sophie replied, wise beyond her 7 years. "Not this time." Arthur sat beside his daughter on the cold floor. "Do you know why I'm so sure?" "Why?" "Because I learned that losing Emily was almost as painful as losing your mother, and I'm not going to make that mistake again." Sophie looked at her father with wide eyes. "You like her, Em, like you really like her." Arthur felt his face flush. "She's very special, to me and to you. Mommy would have liked her too." Sophie rested her head on her father's shoulder. "Sometimes, when I close my eyes, I can see Mommy smiling, and she looks happy that Em is here." Tears burned Arthur's eyes. "Your mother was wise. She would have known that Emily is exactly what we needed." "Daddy, can I ask something?" "Always. If you like Em a lot and she likes you, could she stay forever in a different way, like be a real family?" Arthur hugged his daughter, too emotional to answer. The question Sophie had asked was the same one he had been asking himself, late at night, when he watched Emily caring for the girls with so much love. When their eyes met, and something inexplicable but powerful passed between them. A month after Emily's return, she proposed a new activity. "We're going to have a special therapy session today. Something different." "Different how?" asked Lily, always more cautious than her sister. "It's a surprise, but I need you to trust me completely." The girls exchanged glances. "We trust you?" Emily led them to the therapy room, but this time there was something new. Soft music was playing. There were soft mats on the floor and an almost magical atmosphere created by light curtains letting in filtered sunlight. "Today we're going on a journey," Emily said, her voice hypnotic. a journey inside yourselves. I'm going to ask you to close your eyes and imagine something for me. What? Imagine you are in a beautiful garden, full of flowers, butterflies, the sun warming your faces. And in this garden you can do anything. Absolutely anything. Emily began to guide them through a guided visualization, something she had read about in her research on the mind-body connection. She talked about feeling their legs, about sending love and energy to every muscle, every nerve, about believing that the body knew how to heal itself. It just needed permission and the right stimulus. Now imagine taking a step. Feel the muscles contracting, the weight shifting from one foot to the other. Feel the strength in your legs. Sophie and Lily were completely absorbed, their faces relaxed but focused. Emily noticed with fascination that the toes on both their feet were twitching slightly, as if responding to the visualization. "That's it," she whispered. "Keep feeling, keep believing." Arthur watched from the doorway, skeptical but hopeful. He had researched these techniques too, finding controversial reports. Some doctors called it pseudo-scientific nonsense. Others spoke of cases where the mind had indeed unlocked physical abilities that scans had said were impossible. After the session, the girls were energized in a different way. "Something feels different," Sophie said. "I can't explain it, but I feel something in my legs that I didn't feel before." "That's your body waking up," Emily explained. "Sometimes trauma isn't just physical, it's emotional, and it blocks things that should be working. But the doctor said we'll never walk." "The doctor saw the scans, but scans don't see everything." Emily smiled. "They don't see hope, they don't see love, they don't see determination. And those things are very powerful." That night Arthur asked to speak with Emily privately. They met in the garden under the stars where their privacy was guaranteed. "That session today," he began, "it was incredible to see them so engaged." "They're ready," Emily said, "ready to break the mental barriers that are holding them back." "Do you really believe they can walk?" "I believe the emotional trauma may have blocked neurological signals, and that the right emotional stimulus can unblock them. It's not magic, Arthur. It's science we don't fully understand yet." He studied her under the soft garden light. "You're extraordinary, do you know that?" Emily felt a warmth spread across her face. "I just do what I feel is right." "It's so much more than that." Arthur took a step closer. "You brought life back to this house, to my daughters, to me." "Arthur," she began, but he interrupted her gently. "Let me finish. I know our beginning was complicated, that I hurt you. But these past few months, seeing you with the girls, being part of this family, have made me realize something." "What?" "That it's not just gratitude I feel, it's not just professional respect. It's something deeper, more frightening, more important." Emily felt her heart race. "Arthur, we can't. I work for you. It would be inappropriate. And what if you didn't work for me? What if you were simply part of the family, for real?" "What are you suggesting?" He took her hands. "I'm not suggesting anything yet. I'm just saying that when I look at you, I see a future. I see possibilities. I see a love I didn't think I could ever feel again." Emily felt tears burn her eyes. "I feel it too. But it's so complicated, so fast. It doesn't have to be. We can take it slow. I just needed you to know." They stood like that, hands intertwined under the stars, a moment suspended in time where anything seemed possible. The next day, Emily was preparing another session when she heard Sophie scream. It was a different kind of scream, not of pain or fear, but of surprise. She ran to the room and found Sophie standing beside her bed, holding onto the railings but definitely standing, without her wheelchair. "Em, look! I'm standing!" Emily felt the world stop. "How? When?" "I just wanted to try. After that session yesterday, I felt like I could, and I can. I'm standing." Lily in the bed next to her stared with wide eyes. "Sophie, you're walking." "Not yet, but I'm standing." Sophie was laughing and crying at the same time. Emily approached carefully. "Can you take a step?" Sophie tried. Her foot moved just a few inches, but it moved. She fell back onto the bed, but she was radiant. "I almost did it." "You did it." Emily hugged her tightly. "You stood up. That's incredible. Lily wanted to try too, but her body still didn't respond in the same way. Emily saw the sadness in her eyes. Your time will come, she promised. Every body has its own pace. They practiced all day. Sophie managed to stand for longer periods, to take small supported steps. It wasn't real walking, not yet, but it was progress that every doctor had said was impossible. Arthur came home and nearly fainted when he saw Sophie standing in the living room, holding onto safety bars Emily had improvised. "Daddy, look what I can do." He fell to his knees, crying openly. My girl, my beautiful, strong girl. But it was the next night that the real miracle happened. Emily had gone out to get something she'd forgotten in the car. When she returned and opened the door to the girls' room, she found Sophie and Lily sleeping peacefully. She whispered their names softly. "Sophie, Lily." Their eyes opened simultaneously, and upon recognizing Emily's voice, upon seeing her face, something extraordinary happened. In a simultaneous impulse of pure joy, of overflowing love, of a connection so deep it transcended physical limitations, both girls rose from their beds, not supported, not hesitantly, but with strength and certainty. And they ran. They ran to Emily as if they had never lost the ability, as if their bodies had always known how, just waiting for the right moment, the right stimulus, the right love. Emily caught them, falling to her knees under the emotional weight of the moment. The three of them cried, embracing, as the impossible became real before their eyes. Arthur, who was in the hallway and heard the noise, came to the door and witnessed the scene. His daughters standing, walking, running. The doctors had said it was impossible, but it was happening. It was really happening. He fell to his knees right there in the hallway, sobbing uncontrollably, all the emotions he had bottled up for so long finally releasing. Dr. Peterson was called immediately and arrived still in his pajamas, refusing to believe what Arthur had reported over the phone. But upon entering the room and seeing Sophie and Lily walking, albeit with still uncertain steps, he was speechless. He examined the girls thoroughly, tested reflexes, checked muscle strength, reviewed the old scans. Finally, he shook his head in complete bewilderment. This shouldn't be possible. According to all the scans, the spinal cord injury was permanent. "But it's happening," Emily said softly. "It's right before your eyes." "The emotional trauma," the doctor murmured, more to himself. "Perhaps it blocked the neurological signals, and the emotional stimulus of the reunion simultaneously reactivated their motor functions. It's not a miracle cure, but a psychological release that allowed for a physical recovery that was always possible, just blocked." Arthur hugged Emily, not caring who was watching. "You knew. You always knew." "I believed. That's different." The news spread quickly. Mrs. Gable cried for the first time in years when she saw the girls walking through the house. Dr. Reed was informed and showed up, skeptical and defensive, but unable to deny the evidence before her eyes. She offered a formal apology that sounded hollow, and Arthur politely informed her that her services were no longer needed. The following months were a period of adjustment. Sophie and Lily had to relearn motor skills, strengthen muscles that had atrophied, and regain their balance and coordination. But they did it all with joy, turning every physiotherapy session into a celebration. The house changed completely. The heavy curtains were replaced with light fabrics that let the sun in. The girls' room was redecorated, becoming a colorful, cheerful space with drawings on the walls and toys scattered about. The medical equipment was donated to institutions that needed it. Arthur transformed as well. He started leaving work earlier, participating in meals, reading stories before bed. He took the girls to the park on weekends, taught them to ride bikes with training wheels, and was present in all the ways that mattered. And somewhere in this process of collective healing, the line between gratitude and love, between professionalism and family, between employee and partner, simply disappeared. It was on an ordinary evening after the girls had fallen asleep that Sophie and Lily executed their plan. They had asked Mrs. Gable for help, who for the first time in decades participated in a childish conspiracy with genuine pleasure. They called Arthur and Emily to the living room, where they had prepared a presentation. "We made a project," Sophie announced solemnly, "about family." The two began to explain, with the seriousness that only children can have about important matters. They talked about how family wasn't just about blood, but about love, about how Emily was already family in their hearts, about how they had noticed the way their daddy looked at Em, and the way Em looked at their daddy. And then Lily, always the shyer one, asked the question that would change everything. "Em, do you want to be our real mum, like marry daddy and everything?" Emily was speechless, her face red with emotion and surprise. Arthur was equally shocked, but there was something in his eyes that seemed to say, "Finally." "Girls," he said softly, "that's something that needs to be discussed between adults first." "But you're both in love," Sophie insisted. "We can see it. Everyone can see it." "It's true," Mrs. Gable agreed from the doorway, a rare smile lighting up her face. Arthur looked at Emily. His eyes asked a silent question. She nodded so slightly it was almost imperceptible. He took her hand. "Girls, you're right. I love Emily. I love her strength, her kindness, her ability to believe when everyone else had given up. I love how she loves you, how she's made us a family. And I love all three of you," Emily said, tears streaming down her face. "More than I knew was possible to love." "So you're getting married?" the twins shouted in unison, jumping for joy. Arthur laughed, pulling Emily closer. "Well, I haven't officially asked yet, but if she'll have me—" He knelt, right there in the living room where so many transformations had taken place. "Emily Carter, you brought light into the darkness of this house. You healed not only my daughters but me as well. You taught me that love overcomes any obstacle, any difference, any fear. Will you do me the honor of becoming my wife, the mother of my daughters, my partner forever?" Emily could barely see through her tears. "Yes, 1,000 times, yes." The girls screamed, Mrs. Gable applauded, and in that simple but perfect moment, a family that had been broken by tragedy was made whole again through love. 6 months later, they held a simple ceremony in the mansion's garden. Sophie and Lily, now walking and even running normally, were bridesmaids in dresses as yellow as the sun. Mrs. Gable cried throughout the entire ceremony. A small group of friends and family witnessed as Arthur and Emily exchanged vows under a flower-covered arch. "I promise to love you on the easy days and the hard ones," Arthur said, his voice thick with emotion. "I promise to never again let fear stop me from showing love. I promise to be the man that you and our daughters deserve. I promise to always be by your side," Emily replied. "I promise to love your daughters as my own. I promise that together we will build a family based on love, respect, and unshakable hope." When they kissed, Sophie and Lily ran to hug them, turning the wedding kiss into a family embrace that summed up everything they had achieved. The honeymoon was short, just a weekend at a nearby inn, because none of them could bear to be away from the girls for too long. And that was perfect, because family was what mattered. A year after the wedding, Emily discovered she was pregnant. The news filled the house with renewed joy. Sophie and Lily were ecstatic at the idea of a little brother or sister. "We'll teach him everything," Sophie planned. "How to walk, how to read, how to be strong. And we'll tell him the story of how our family was formed," Lily added. "How love conquers all." When the baby was born, a beautiful boy they named Daniel, Sophie and Lily welcomed him with the dedication of older sisters determined to protect. They helped with the bottles, sang him to sleep, and argued gently over who would hold him first. Arthur watched his expanded family with a gratitude that left him speechless. It had all started with a loss so devastating it seemed impossible to survive. But here he was, 2 years later, with a wife he loved deeply, 3 healthy and happy children, and a future full of possibilities. Emily also reflected on her journey. She had come from a humble flat in East London with no great expectations or impossible dreams, but love had taken her to places she never imagined. Not just physically to this mansion that was now her home, but emotionally to depths of connection and happiness that transformed who she was. One afternoon, months after Daniel's birth, the whole family was in the garden. Sophie and Lily were playing with their baby brother on the grass, their laughter filling the air. Arthur had his arm around Emily, both of them watching the scene with deep contentment. "Do you have any regrets?" Arthur asked. "About how everything happened, the suffering we went through," Emily thought carefully. "The suffering was real and painful, but it brought us here. It made us value what we have, so no, I don't regret it. Every tear, every hardship was worth it to get to this moment." He kissed her gently. "You're the wisest woman I know." Sophie ran up to them, Daniel in her arms with Lily's help. "Come play with us, the whole family together." And off they went, running across the grass, playing tag, building imaginary sandcastles, simply being a happy and complete family. The story of the twins who stood up to embrace love became a legend in London. Doctors still studied the case, trying to understand the exact mechanisms of their recovery. But for Arthur, Emily, Sophie, Lily and Daniel, the explanation was simple. True love heals. Not necessarily in the way we expect, not always by removing pain or hardship, but by giving us the strength to overcome them, by giving us a reason to fight, hope to continue, and joy to make the journey worthwhile. The twins grew up strong and healthy, with no trace of the injuries doctors had said were permanent. They became advocates for children with special needs, telling their story to give hope to other families. Emily never forgot her humble origins. She used the family's resources to create a foundation that helped nannies and caregivers receive proper training in holistic approaches to childcare. Mrs. Gable became the foundation's administrator, finding renewed purpose in helping others. Arthur learned that material wealth without love is empty, but true love makes any life rich beyond measure. He transformed his company to focus on projects that truly made a difference in the community, honoring Eleanor's memory through concrete actions. And every night, without exception, the family gathered for dinner. They shared stories of their day, laughed together, planned adventures. Daniel grew up surrounded by love, knowing from the very beginning that family was the greatest treasure. Years later, when Sophie and Lily were teenagers and Daniel, a curious, cheerful child, they sat down to write their story. They wanted other people to know that miracles happen, that hope is worthwhile, that love conquers all obstacles. And as they wrote, they remembered that crucial moment when everything changed. The moment a humble young woman decided to believe in the impossible, the moment a father learned to face his fears, the moment two little girls decided to stand up and run towards the love that awaited them. Because in the end, it wasn't their legs that kept them in their wheelchairs, it was the lack of hope, of love, of a reason to fight. And when those elements appeared in the form of an extraordinary nanny who refused to give up, their bodies simply remembered how to fly. End of story. Dear listeners, we hope the story of Emily, Arthur, Sophie and Lily has touched your hearts deeply. If this journey of love, overcoming and miracles moved you as much as it moved us to tell it, we have a special playlist waiting for you, filled with equally captivating stories that explore the transformative power of true love. Find it by clicking on the left of the screen. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and leave a like on this video, as it helps us continue to bring stories that celebrate the human capacity to overcome any obstacle when there is love and hope. Every day, we share unique narratives that show how life, even in its most challenging moments, can surprise us with happy endings that seemed impossible. Let us know in the comments which moment touched you the most in this story. Sophie and Lily running to embrace Emily, the marriage proposal, the birth of Daniel. We want to know what has been etched in your hearts. Until the next story, and always remember, true love transcends all barriers and creates miracles when combined with faith, patience, and unconditional acceptance.